Hey guys, welcome into the 2024 Jewel School Workshops. My name is Laura. Thank you for joining me here today. I'm so excited to be here with you guys. We have got so much fun stuff going on in these workshops for you guys, and I am so happy to be a part of it. Today we have a really cool demo. We are making a beaded Briolette necklace. We're making this kind of cluster necklace that I feel like is really cool. One thing that I love working with is Briolette stones, and I also, if you guys have been following along with me at all on my streaming shows, know that I love tiny beads. So this was a great way to mix two of the things that I really love, and I'm excited to share that with you guys. As I said, my name is Laura, and I am a member of our Jewel School streaming team. I have been making jewelry for a long time, since I was about 15 years old. I am from Knoxville, and I started making jewelry when I got a job at Susan's bead store. She used to have a bead store here in Knoxville, and it was my first job. And I started working there, and I just fell in love with making jewelry, and I just have continued to do it. I went to college at Savannah College of Art and Design, and I studied metals and jewelry, and it was really an incredible experience, and one that has given me a great wealth of knowledge when it comes to making jewelry, and all kinds of cool experiences. I met all kinds of really amazing people, and I'm really excited to bring some of those techniques and that experience to you guys. From college, I moved to New York, and I worked for David Yurman as a jewelry designer for about 5 years. I was on the men's design team designing men's jewelry, which was a really interesting and very fruitful experience. I learned so much about the jewelry making world, a bunch of new technologies, different materials. So both experiences have been invaluable in my life as a designer and a jewelry maker. And now I'm back in Knoxville, and I've been at JTV for almost 2 years on the Jewel School team. I'm back with Susan and Katie, two people that have been in my life for a long time and have been very important in my jewelry making career. So it's great to be here with them, and it's great to be here with you guys. So that's a little bit about me. I'm excited to learn about you guys too. So in the comments, let me know who you are, where you're from, say hello. And as usual, if you watch my streaming shows, you know that I love comments and questions. So if you have any questions or comments during this tutorial, make sure and ask them in the comments, and I will be following along, and will do my best to answer any questions that you might have. So yeah, let's talk about what we are gonna do today. Again, we're doing this Briolette cluster. We're doing 3 Briolettes with these really amazing yellow opal Briolettes. I'm gonna call them Brios. That's so I don't mess this up, because there's like kind of controversy about whether we say Briolette or Briolette. So I just go with Brio just to make it easier for everyone. So if I'm saying Brio, I'm talking about a teardrop pear-shaped stone with a hole that goes through the top. So we have this incredible strand of yellow opal Brios, and I have fallen in love with it. And it's so cool to me. It's got such a variety of colors. We go from like a deep yellow color to kind of a pale yellow color. They've got some cool cloudiness in there, and the faceting is really beautiful on these. So I have loved being able to kind of explore these and come up with really cool ideas. And then we've got these really beautiful little crystal beads. They're these glass crystal beads. They're faceted. They're like 3 millimeter round faceted beads, and that is my jam. If you know me, you know I love little beads. So we're going to use those to kind of create these cool enhancer bail forms on top of our Brios. Brios can sometimes be a challenge, I feel like, and they were for me when I first started making jewelry, because sometimes they can be fragile, and the tips of them can be fragile, and so they can kind of be a little intimidating for us to work with. And I kind of wanted to squash that, because I feel like I kind of have mastered working with Brios, and I want you guys to feel the same way. So I'm going to teach you some tricks and show you some techniques that kind of eliminate that the potential for breakage at the top of the Brio, which is where people tend to struggle. And you know, it's a double-edged sword, because Brios are made with beautiful natural stones, and you know, sometimes they're made with crystals, but usually when you see Brios, they're made with beautiful natural stones, and so they're hand cut usually, which means their drill holes can be off center or up at the top, like close to the tip, or they can be crooked, which can be you know, a challenge to figure out how to wire wrap them in a way that where they hang straight, they're secure, and things like that. So that's something that we're gonna kind of talk through and work through today as we go through our demo. And I just like, I liked pairing that amber color of those crystal beads with the really nice yellow color in those opals. I felt like it was a good contrast, but this is also something that you can expand on and make your own. That's one thing I love to do with my demos, is to do things where you can make it your own. You can use any type of brio you want and any type of little bead you want to make this project. You'll see my necklace, I kind of have a version of it. It's a little bit different. I used a really small brio with some of the larger, well, not larger, with some of these beads up top. And so it's like a little bit different look to it, but it's the exact same concept. So this technique can translate into all kinds of ways. So I'm excited to share it with you. Okay, tool-wise, we are using, again, my favorite, the trifecta, which is kind of our most basic foundational jewelry making tools. We've got your flush cutter, your round nose plier, and then your chain nose plier. I have 2 chain nose pliers with me because I'm gonna open and close a jump ring towards the end, at the end of our project, and I like to do that using 2 chain nose pliers, so that's why I have 2. So tool-wise, very minimal, not a lot to it. If you have your foundation tools and you're set, you're ready to go with this project. If you don't have your foundational tools, if you don't have the trifecta, we have an incredible tool set here at Jewel School. It's our Jewel School Home Studio Toolkit, and it comes with storage. It comes with this little plastic tray that you can put all your tools on, and it has your foundation tools, and it also has some more advanced tools. So if you don't have a tool set yet, I would take a look at that tool set in particular. It is tried and tested by the ladies of Jewel School, and we love it. And so yeah, so you just need your 3 most basic tools: round nose, chain nose, and flush cutter. For our wire, we're just using 24 gauge wire. I'm using a gold tone 24 gauge wire. If you have 26 gauge wire, you can use 26. You can use 22. I have found that I struggle to get 22 gauge wire through most of my brio drill holes, but especially with these yellow opals, I have found that I've had no issues using my 24 gauge wire. So if I can use a heavier gauge wire, then I will. So I'm gonna go with the 24 gauge. Yeah, so let's get started. First thing that we are gonna do, we're gonna start with our bigger brio. Oh, and that's one thing I wanna talk about before we get going, is picking out our brios for this project in particular. So I went with like 3 different sizes of brios because I wanted to give a nice variation in height, and that's something that is important for me to play around with, is the proportion and the balance of the necklace. And I felt like if I chose all the same size brios, then it would look a little chunky. And I wanted to kind of play with the different heights and lengths of them, and one of the ways to do that was to pick different size brios, and that kind of gives you a little bit of variation in there. So I went with kind of a smaller and a more medium size, and then a larger size, and then we're also going to adjust the amount of beads that we use for the enhancer part to again accentuate that difference in height, give us a little variation there. So I picked out 3 different brios that I'm using for my project today. Again, small, medium, large. I also wanted to kind of vary in the color and the opacity of the gemstone themselves, again, just to give us a little visual interest, a little variation. So I've got one kind of from each color range. So that I think adds to the overall interesting look of the piece in particular. So we're gonna start with our biggest yellow opal here, and we're gonna get wrapping on this one first. So we're gonna cut ourselves about 6 inches of 24 gauge wire here. Just gonna pull this off the spool. We don't need too much wire, just a couple inches. And you know, how much wire you use is gonna depend on how many beads you wanna use for your enhancer, how funky or wacky you wanna make your wraps around the top of our brio. So all that can kind of vary a little bit, but 5 or 6 inches is a good place to start. And if you have a little extra, that's okay. You can use I use my scrap wire all the time, y'all. I use it, I never throw away my wire. I always use my pieces as scrap. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're gonna string our brio here onto our wire. So we've got it on here. And then we're gonna pull both of these pieces of wire up very gently along the edge of the top of our Brio. And I wanna get it pretty close up to the sides of the top of my Brio. If you can see, they're following that pretty closely. And then I'm gonna take my chain nose pliers here, and on my long tail here, I'm gonna bend it up straight so that it is coming straight. It looks like it's coming straight out of the top of my Brio there. And I'm gonna take my shorter end here and I'm gonna wrap it around that wire that we just bent upwards. I'm just gonna wrap it a couple times, like 2 or 3 times. And that's just gonna secure our Brio onto our wire, and then we're gonna trim that smaller tail off there. And see, this to me, this technique, so this has helped me eliminate breakage with my Brios up at the top. That, you know, the smaller your Brio gets up there at the top and the closer your drill hole gets to the top of your Brio, the higher your chances are for breaking the tip of your Brio off. So I do that, like when I do that, I don't know if you guys saw how slow and like carefully I pulled my wires up, made sure I wasn't putting too much pressure on the edges of my Brio while I was bending my wire. But also, I used to wrap my Brios where I'd pull the 2 pieces of wire together and then I'd twist them together, and that torque or that tension that I was putting on my Brio from twisting like that would almost always break at least 1 or 2 tips of my Brio. But I'm eliminating that pressure on the tip of my Brio by doing it this way, by bending my wire up and then just gently wrapping that wire around the top of my Brio. And then you've got a really secure connection up there, and you've got a little bit of movement in your Brio, so it's not rubbing on the edge of your wire. I don't want the tip of my Brio hitting that coil at all. I just want there to be just enough room to where it can move back and forth and it's not gonna catch the edge of my Brio, because that is also can cause breakage or chipping of that tip right there. So you just wanna make sure that you're giving yourself just enough room to kind of clear the top of your Brio like that. And this is just something that has taken practice, trial and error. It's taken a lot of breaking of Brios for me. And so don't stress if you find yourself, you know, struggling at first or breaking some at first. It's, as with all things jewelry making, it just takes time and practice. So now we are gonna go in and we're gonna clip our shorter tail off with our chain nose pliers. If you don't have a really awesome set of chain nose pliers, you need to check out Pliers 61 on our website. This is the best set of did I say flush cutters? I said chain nose pliers. I meant to say flush cutters. If you don't have an amazing set of flush cutters, this is the one for you. It cannot be ruined. I have tried and I have not been able to ruin it yet. They laugh at me because I am like the tool destroyer on Jewel School. If the tool can be broken, I will break it, and I will test tools out to see if I can break them. Pliers 61 is the exception to the rule, except if you're gonna try to cut steel with it, which I have not attempted because I know the answer would be that I would mess the tool up. But anything else you can cut, and it cuts like butter with this tool, and that's a critical thing when you're making jewelry. It's very frustrating when you're doing this like really intricate work and it's on a small scale and you're trying to be real careful and you got these flush cutters that won't cut, and so you got to try to, you know, mash it around and cut a bunch of times, and you end up with this like gnarly, jagged edge on your wire, and you got to figure out how to clean that up, and it just creates headache. So do yourself a favor, get a Pliers 61, save yourself some headache, and you end up with very nice, clean flush cuts every single time. That's my spiel about flush cutters. Okay, so we cut that off, our smaller wire there, and now we have almost like created like a head pin or an eye pin, if you will. And I'm just gonna go in and just tuck my tail a little bit, make sure nothing's poking out, but I didn't have much of a tail because I've got such an awesome flush cutter. There wasn't anything for me to tuck. So now we're ready to string our crystal beads on here. And for the larger Brio, I did 15 of these crystal beads. You can do as many or as few, well, you can do as many as you want. I would not do any less than, for the smallest one we're doing 8, and I tried doing less than 8 and I couldn't get a nice, you know, oval enhancer shape. So I really would not go any fewer than 8. If you're using smaller gemstones, you can get away with using a smaller quantity just because they bend into that oval shape a little bit nicer. But with this size bead, 8 was kind of my cutoff. So I'm just gonna get these strung. Try to get them strung. Let's see how many I have. 2, 3, 6, 9, 10. 5 more. There we go. But I've made some, you know, some necklaces like that where I've used a lot of beads, like 20 to 25, and made like a big enhancer, and that looks really cool too. Okay, so the next thing that we've got our beads strung on here, and the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna bring this into a loop, into an oval shape. Making sure that we are, you know, not leaving a bunch of slack in between our beads there. I don't want to see a lot of gapping in between my beads because it's going to be really hard to kind of clean that up once we get finished. So I've got my beads pulled into a loop, and my wire is back down here kind of next to my Brio. And then I'm just going to hold on to my loop, and I'm going to wrap this wire around and just get it secured. And now I'm just gonna gently wrap it. I like to wrap it a bunch of times. I like to give a full kind of whimsical, kind of funky looking wrap here, just to give it a little pop of metallic there. I just like the look of it. You can do a really nicely stacked and minimal wrap there if you want, if you prefer the look of that. I like the look of this kind of wacky, funky looking wrap, kind of in between that Brio and those crystal beads. So now I'm just going back in and I'm tucking my tail. I just basically wrapped until I ran out of wire and then tucked my tail in. So we've got our big one done, and then I just like to go back and make sure, kind of reshape my loop here, make sure it looks even, like that. So that's from the side, and then this is from the front. So we got one down, 2 more to go. This is a really fun, I think, way to add a little something extra to your Brios as well. Sometimes I remember I would struggle with, like, so I'd have Brios and be like, what do I do with them? What do I put with them? Because they seem kind of like they're their own entity, and like almost like they have to be on their own, but they don't. You know, there's really fun ways to wrap them and pair them with other things that kind of can bring them to life a little bit, or enhance the way that they look, enhance their life. And so that's one of the things that I feel like this enhancer project does, is that it just kind of turns the Brio into a whole nother entity, if you will, by adding that really cool big beaded part up there at the top. So we're gonna work on our second one here. We are going to, again, pull ourselves 5 to 6 inches of wire. Cut that off with my flush cutter. And then we will grab our medium size Brio. And again, we are going to slide our 24 gauge wire on here. And we're gonna carefully just bend these wires up along the edge of your brio. And just crisscross them up there at the top. Then we'll grab our chain nose pliers and we'll grab a hold of this longest piece of wire. See how I've got a short one and a long one? And then I'm gonna hold my brio steady and I'm just gonna turn this longer wire up just a little bit so that it's pointing straight up out of the top of the brio, like that. And then we're just gonna gently wrap our shorter wire around that longer piece of wire there. Just a couple times, just to secure it. And see, again, we're clearing the top of our brio, but we don't have too much room that there's like a big old gap. We don't want a big, huge gap, but we just want enough room to where this can move a little bit. And then, you notice with the first one, we eventually did stabilize the brio and eliminated any movement, but I don't want to do that until right at the finish because of, like, when you're working with your brio, when you're in the working phase of your brio, you want it to be able to move so that you're not putting pressure on it and potentially cracking it. So you want to have that movement, and then at the very end, do the wrap that stabilizes it and kind of finishes it off. So then we'll go in again with our flush cutters here. We'll just trim that off down there. And now we are ready to string our beads. And so for the second one, our middle guy, I strung 10 of our crystals. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, almost, so close. 10. So I'll get these strung on there real quick. And if you guys have any questions at this point, please let me know in the comments. And I will do my best to answer them. Just continue to string these on here. All right. Now we're ready to make our bail or our enhancer. So I'm just gonna gently bend this around into a loop and bring it around back down towards my brio. And then we're gonna come around with our wire and I just wrap until I run out of wire. And then we'll go in with our chain nose pliers. And we will just tuck that little wire in there. And then I'm just gonna reshape kind of my bail again. Make sure it's got a nice oval shape to it. And there's our second one. Look at the cool, like, kind of, it's almost like this yellow opal is shaded. It goes from cloudy to a little bit more clear. It goes from a lighter yellow or a paler yellow to a darker yellow. This is one of my favorite of all of them. I just can't say enough cool things about this yellow opal strand. The faceting on it is beautiful, and they're really, like, they're thick, they're substantial, and they've got this kind of flatter shape to them, which is really an interesting shape in the brio world. And it lays really nicely on a necklace. It makes a really beautiful pair of earrings, but you get kind of the look of a big brio from the front without the kind of the thickness of the brio from the back. Just to recap what we've done so far, we have wrapped our two largest brios. So we've got our large one done and our medium one done. We used you know, a larger yellow opal for the big one. We use the medium size here. We use 15 crystals on our large enhancer and 10 on our medium enhancer. And we've got these funky, chunky little wraps going on here. Like I said, if you want, you know, a more neat or even wraps down there, you know, you can be as neat with it as you want. I liked the, I don't know, the chunkiness of that wrap right there in the middle, and it just added a little interest to me. It's like, ooh, what's going on in the middle there? It makes you want to kind of look closer at the necklace or at the enhancer. So that's why I went with the wacky wrap. And also, the more you come down onto your brio with your wrap, and the more you kind of beef up that wrap, the more you're protecting the top of that brio. And the more you're stabilizing it and keeping it from moving and keeping anything from like hitting it or anything like that. So that's another kind of a dual purpose of that thicker, fuller wrap, is also to protect the top of that brio. So just think about that when you're thinking about how you want to do that kind of wrap, that you've got to make sure that no matter what you're doing, that you're protecting the top of your brio and wrapping down onto it on some level. Okay, so then we are going to wrap our last one here, our smallest little guy. He's so cute. I don't know. Then I look, this is so hard. It's so hard with these yellow opals because they're so cool. Every time I like even glance at my tray, I'm like, well, maybe I should use that one. Maybe I should use that one. I don't know. I can't make up my mind because they're all so cool. This one is just really cool. It's got like layers in it. I don't know if you can tell, but it's not as small as I want it to be. I don't know. It is just cool though. I really like that one. I don't know, maybe I'll use that one. It's a good in-between color, I think. Should I switch? Maybe I'll switch. Or I could do this really light one. Oh, I don't know, guys. Now I'm stuck. Is that too light? I think that's too light. It's the hardest part of the whole thing. I think I'm gonna go with my initial pick there. What do you guys think? Perfect, okay, we're gonna go with that one. But that's the fun part and the hard part about these kind of projects, is deciding which beads or which stones you're gonna use. I will sit here and I'll go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for 20 minutes before I actually pick something. Okay, again, we're gonna cut ourselves a couple inches of wire, of our 24 gauge wire here, and we are going to string our final brio onto our wire, and we're just gonna pull it, you know, a third of the way down maybe, and we're gonna gently come up. Also, the smaller your brio, the more fragile, so you just, as you go down in size, just be, you know, more and more mindful of that tip up there at the top. So we've crisscrossed them like that, and then we're gonna go in with our chain nose pliers, and we're just gonna bend that longer tail up straight. And then we're gonna come around with our wire here. Just very gently, and wrap it around that longer piece of wire. And see, we're clearing the top, and it can move. And now we're just gonna trim this little tail off here. And now we're ready to add our beads. So for the smallest one, I'm using 8 beads. Like I said, I didn't feel good about the way it looked when I went smaller than 8. So that was my cutoff. But also it depends, like I said, it depends on what size beads you use, what shape. All kinds of things factor into how that enhancer is how it's gonna fold back onto itself into that loop shape. Just get these strung real quick. And then we will be ready to pull this back onto itself. And I just like guide it kind of with my thumb. If I just pull it straight down, chances are it's gonna, not gonna bend where I want it to bend in the middle, and it's also gonna bend more in like a V shape than this rounded shape that I want. And that's important, like with keeping these beads, you know, flowing across the top like we want them to. It's important that like it's folding in a oval shape and not like a V shape. Otherwise, they're just gonna fall to the side of the top. Okay, so we've got it pulled down around into this oval shape here. And then again, we're gonna come around with our wire. We're just gonna start wrapping and wrap down onto our brio and get a nice full wrap there to protect the top of our brio. And then we're just gonna make sure we don't need to adjust the shape here of our loop. We've got our last one done. Didn't that one look so cute? I think it's so cute. I like that little one. And now we are ready to put them on a necklace. So for this, you can use any kind of necklace you want. They look great on leather. If you have chain that you want to put them on, they look great on chain. If you've got other charms that you want to put with them too, that's a really cool way to kind of jazz them up a little bit if you want to add to and make a really cool cluster down there. I like them with like a longer piece of chain. I think they look pretty like dangling lower down, but if you want a shorter chain, do a shorter chain. Again, they look great on leather as well. So I'm gonna string these. The order that I put these in is I put the middle one, the largest one in the middle, just so that I didn't want the look of like, you know, it's stepping down like that or going at an angle. So I did my medium, and then my large, and then my smaller on here. And then they kind of cascade and hang nicely up next to each other, and they kind of nestle into each other pretty well when they're sized like that, when the heights are different like that. And now you just close off your necklace with whatever clasp you want to, or if you're doing a really long necklace, you don't need a clasp. You can just you know, close it with a jump ring or tie it if you're using leather. Totally depends on what you're doing, what your style is. But basically I wanted to show you guys how to make the little enhancers down there, and then what you do up top is up to you. I just closed this chain off with a jump ring real quick, just so that I can show you guys. Same look. And there we go. Aren't those fun? I think it's a cool cluster, a cool way to, you know, make a necklace that you can kind of show off your personality a little bit. I think with any kind of charm, any kind of cluster, anything, stacks, anything like that, I think it says a lot about people's personality. You can pick, you know, gemstones that are meaningful to you or important to you, and colors that are important to you, birthstones, things like that. If you've got grandkids, this would be a really cool way to do like a grandmother's necklace, where each one represents a child with their birthstones, and you can use different colors for the enhancer part at the top. But again, also adding like little charms in here with them, like a little cross charm or something that kind of symbolizes, you know, part of what's important to you, is a great way to add more to your cluster. So just to recap, we used our yellow opal. We have a very cool strand of yellow opal briolettes, and we used a small, medium, and large from this strand, and then we used these 3mm glass crystal faceted beads. We used some 24 gauge wire, and then we used our tool trifecta. We used flush cutters, round nose pliers, and chain nose pliers. So not a lot of materials or tools, very simple project for a very cool outcome, I think. So I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I hope you learned something and that you will join me back here. Thank you again for taking time out of your day to spend some time with me. I've really enjoyed being here with you. I hope you guys are having fun checking out all the Jewel School workshops. If you need any of the tools or supplies that we use today, or you just want to look for, if you're just interested in shopping for jewelry supplies, check out jewelschool.com. We've got tons of great stuff on there. If you're not following me already on social media, follow me, JTV Laura, on Facebook and Instagram, and you'll see all my content. I have 3 streaming shows every week, and I always post them on my Facebook. My shows are Monday at 3:30, Makers Academy, Wednesday at 4 for Jewel School Extra, and on Friday at 4 for Master Maker. So don't miss any of those shows. Check them out. Lots of cool content. Thank you guys again for joining me here today. I'll see you soon.